Well, welcome everyone to the 9.1 to 9.3 quiz review. So we started things off with this unit talking about dot plots. So dot plots are a way to display a data set. So here in this table here we have a set of data values called a data set, and it represents the age of soccer players on a team in years. So to create a dot plot, remember we want to create a number line starting with the lowest value going up to the highest value without skipping any numbers. Remember to label that number line with units. So we have age in years. And then we're going to put a dot for each data value over that number on the number line. So that's going to tell us the frequency or how many times that, in this case, age happened on this soccer team. All right, so go ahead, pause the video, give it a try, see what you come up with. Oh, and one other thing, almost forgot. Also identify clusters. So that is where a lot of data is grouped together. Any peaks, so that's the value that happens the most. And then any gaps, so that's where there aren't any data values. So in this case, it would be any years that we do not have, or any ages where we don't have a value for. All right, so now go ahead, pause the video, give it a try. All right, so after completing our dot plot, our number line would have the values starting at 19 up to 31. Remember to label it again with the units. So we have ages and years. And then we have a dot for each time that data value occurred or the frequency of the data values. All right, now identifying the clusters. So we have a cluster where most of the data occurs. On the left here, we have a peak at 20, and we have a gap between 23 and 31. So you could use a curly brace to identify the gap, or you can just kind of circle it. Now, one thing I did want to mention is that you could have more than one cluster, peak, and gap. Also, you could kind of have a different cluster here. Now, some students may want to just make their cluster be from 19 to 21, and that's fine as long as you include the peak. So if you include the peak in the cluster, then you are going to be just fine. All right, so the other part of the unit that we've talked about so far is the mean, median, and mode. So let's look at those measures of center. They measure the center of the data. So the mean is also known as the average. To find the mean, we find the sum of the data values and divide by the number of data values. The median is the middle value. So we first order the data from least to greatest. We cross off the smallest and largest values in pairs until there's one or two number are left. I guess I need an S here, sorry. Until one or two numbers are left. If there's one number left, that's the median. If two numbers are left, then we find the mean of the remaining two numbers, and that's the median. And finally, we have the mode, which is the value that happens the most. Remember, we might have one mode. There may be no mode, so if all the data values happen the same number of times, the same frequency, there's no mode. Or there might be more than one mode. There might be two or three data values that happen the same amount, but more than the remaining data values. So let's go ahead and practice. All right, so find the mean, median, mode, and range for this data set. I know it says example, but go ahead and pause, try it on your own, and see how you do. All right, so the first thing you should have done was order the values from least to greatest. Right? To make sure that you get all the values, I kind of put a line underneath each one, and then you can count them. So there's 10 values here and 10 values here. To find the mean, we add them all up and divide by the number of data values. So again, make sure that you've got all the numbers here. So make sure you have 10 numbers here to match the 10 numbers in the original list. So if you find the sum of those data values, you get 68. There are 10 data values, so 68 divided by 10 is 6 8/10. Now when we do the median, Again, we're crossing off in pairs. We cross off the 3 and 13 together, the next 3 and 12 together, the next 3 and 11 together, the final 3 and the 8 together. And that leaves us two numbers in the middle, 4 and 8. So we need to find the number in between. So we can find the mean of that. 4 plus 8 is 12, divided by 2 is 6. And finally, the mode happens the most. We just have one mode. 3 happens 4 times, so 3 is the mode. Now the last thing we talked about was the outlier. And an outlier is the data value that is much higher or lower than the other values. So for this one, go ahead and determine the outlier and then find the mean, median, and mode. Now once you find the mean, median, and mode, determine which one represents the data best. So if you just picked one of those numbers, which one would represent all of the data the best out of all of them? Okay, so really this is something that you just need to explain why you picked what you did. There may be more than one correct answer for this. So if you pick the mean, just explain why you picked the mean, like what the mean is. If you pick the median, just explain what the median is. Or if you pick the mode, again, explain what the mode is in words. All right, so go ahead and give that one a shot and see how you do. All right, so first order the numbers from least to greatest. For the mean, find the sum of the data values divided by the number of data values, which is 6, and you get 522 divided by 6 is 87. Now this is the amount of work I want you to show on the quiz, even though you have a calculator at your disposal. All right, so make sure you're showing all of this work. All right, next the median. As we cross off the smallest and largest in pairs, we end up with 88 and 92 in the middle, and the mean of that is 90, so our median is 90. And the mode happens the most. We do have the mode. We have 88 happening twice, so 88 is the mode. Again, if all of these values were different, we would have no mode. So be aware of that situation. All right, now I chose the median as the measure of center that represents the data the best because it's right in the middle of the data. Okay, so I didn't pick the mean because there's an outlier. And notice that outlier of 64, which I was supposed to determine at the beginning. Sorry about that. So our outlier is 64. It's much smaller than the rest of the data. That outlier really made that mean lower than the middle of the data. So I wouldn't pick the mean. I did pick the median because it's right in the middle. And the mode 88, again, you might have picked the mode because it happens the most, but if you took away the outlier, it would still be the lowest number instead of somewhere more in the middle. All right, but again, as long as you explain what the median or mode or mean, whatever you chose for this, as long as you explain what it is, then you'll get credit for that answer. All right, so that does it for our review of the quiz. Good luck.